Hello, welcome to Blender Sushi live noding and series, and this is the third part of the topic tracing, or how we can trace object or its vertices using animation node. So this is where I left you last time. So we are able to trace the object's movement, like the center of the object, and as well all the vertices, and we do that by using particles. So we kind of set it up so each vertices, for example, will leave trace behind, and then with that trace we turn it into a spline, so we have like a visible trace like that. Let's go and have a look and see the setup once again. So we have the original object, in this case this torus, and we wiggle it in position and also in rotation. So that's just the animations, and this is not the bake animations. Let me quickly do something to make this animation a little bit faster. So instead of auto execution always, we can change it to frame change. So this is gonna be faster. You see, it's a lot faster, so it will only get calculated when the frame is changing. So we have this animation, and then with that animations we kind of trace the center part of the animations. And for the vertices, we use the same mesh, and then we source the vertex locations and then create an instance copy of particles emitter for each vertices. So then so we turn all this the traces into spline. Now what we are I'm trying to show you is to just modify this setup slightly so we can use it for particle tracing. So let's have a look. Yep, let's do that real quick. So we don't actually need the center part tracing. We can delete that part. Now we are left with just the tracing of the vertices. We have the original vert emitter, that guy right there, this guy. We could actually hide the emitter from the scene, so when it's playing back, we shouldn't see the particle or the emitter. So let's just put that on the side for now. So we still have this thing working. I'm going to quickly create another particle emitter. Let's say from a grid, and let's scale it slightly in edit mode. So it's gonna be kind of like a raining. I'll turn this into a wireframe with all the edges drawn. Yeah, just like that. So I'll emit another particle. I'll call this guy like a master. So this is just another emitter for particles. It's gonna just let it run. Maybe instead of 100, I'll just emit from the vertices. Or faces. one phase, one particle per phase, and I can just, okay, let's say how many phases do we have? 1 2 3 4 5 6 7 8 9 9, so 81. Just emit 81 particles on the first frame with the lifetime 250. So we have that. I believe it's kind of shooting up, so I just turn off the normal as well, so I let it fall through the gravity, just like that. So that's gonna be our particles, and we're gonna trace it using this setup above. All right, so we're gonna source that object. So this is a new master of particle. Let's use the particles from object node. Particle from objects. Let's grab that guy, master, and then let's use the particle list info. And then with the locations, we're gonna also filter the particles. Just want the particles that's alive. And then we have this location, right? And with location, we can simply just plug this into, just to replace this guy right here. So whatever this guy is sourcing into, we just replace it with this particle position. So let's do that real quick. Just plug that in there, plug that in there, and then here, and then here. We don't need this guy anymore, just delete it. And then with the torus as well, we can just delete the torus. So this is gonna be our setup, and we don't need that object. Let's have a look if it's actually working. So it's kind of doing something. It does actually work now. That's our vert. This is the vert that's got instances for every single point. So I'll save this real quick. This is AN motion trace part 3. Save Blender file. Okay, so it's already working as we want it. So this complex setup, we can just keep it. And we have particles being traced. And so all you need to do now is just to play with the actual particles movement. It's totally up to you and how you're gonna emit it, or gonna just create a design based on the particle motion. It can in fact be all kind of particles that Blender has, even though Blender particle is kind of limited. Like once Blender particles becoming more like node based, it's gonna be like maybe 10 times more powerful or 100 times more powerful, who knows. But even at this time, using the default particles and animation nodes, we can have something that's looking really cool. So you could kind of, let's say, use a random size of particle and multiply the mass with the size. So it's gonna randomize the mass. I believe it's gonna have effect. So some particles will drop a little bit faster. Probably not. Turn on Brownian. Brownian will kind of, it looks like a turbulence. So that's, I like that Brownian attribute in particles a lot. So now we have something that's a little bit more random. So each particle has a different size and mass. You can turn it into voids, of course. Voids is like a little bit smarter particle. So let's see. So as a void, particles tend to stick on the surface, and sometimes they fly, sometimes they just jump around. Voids looks like that, kind of like a insects or bird, like kind of like creatures. You can, of course, there is a just allow landing, allow climbing, all sort of options. That's really fun to play with. Now I'll show you quickly an example of render. I actually just rendered it the other day, and it's looking like this. So let's quickly jump into that frame. So it's just our master emitter just emitting particles from the center, and then all the particles just fly all over the place. All I use is the Brownian, but you can use other stuff like even the force, probably like a particle force, and then you can influence the particle somehow. Let's say if you're using like a force field. Smoke flow is when you're using smoke simulations to influence the particles, kind of like, what do they call it? Particle smoke. There's a terminology for that, I forgot. But there is wind, there's other force. Vortex is something that's cool, you can try. If I just create a vortex, I think the particle will just get affected by this. Vortex, let's see, vortex field, shape, plane, point, strength, set 20. Noise, just leave it. Just leave the rest. And then, so the particle just fly over the place, all over the place. The string is too strong. That's the force of nature right there. Maybe it needs some kind of drop off or something. Inflow, noise. But the vortex is cool, yeah. And I really like this idea of tracing particles, and we can see it over time. I believe Blender also has a way to kind of turn particles and trace it into hair or something. And that's actually built in, but using that method, I believe you need to cache the particles, and then you cannot see it updating in real time. So that's probably something to try. So I kind of like this kind of design. You can play around with this idea. Tracing particle is cool, and maybe you can colorize each and every ribbon. That's interesting how it looks like this, zigzaggy like that. If I save this, and then if I try perhaps emitting particles from this guy, turn it on. Let's see, 110 particles. Start from frame 1, lifetime 250. So it's just gonna be like just like that. Maybe turn off the physics random, turn off the gravity, turn on the Brownian, so we have like just particles being pushed up by the normal, and then so we don't need the normal even, just the Brownian pushing the particle. Let's turn this up and just add a little bit of drag. We always need a little bit of drag and damping so the particle doesn't just explode and fly too far. So we have these particles, and I believe we can, let's say if we cache this particle, cache it into memory or external, let's create external or just cache it like this. Just wait a little bit. Ah, okay. Bake all dynamics. So let's just do that. So now the simulation is baked. Particle simulation is baked. If we switch this to hair, see, particle edit. So it's become uneditable particles. And wait, paint, particle edit, so we can kind of brush the particle, comb the particles, and all sort of thing. And there is an apply somewhere. Apply. I cannot remember the setting. Back to object mode. Probably you need to switch to hair system. So free bake and then switch to hair. So hair, turning particles into hair, and you can convert it into mesh object. So it's kind of like a, if you're using just Blender internal to trace the particle, you do it this way. You cache the particles, and let's just ignore the phone. So you cache the particles, and then you turn the particle simulations into hair, and you can bake it, and it's become a mesh. Just a mesh object like that. And you can skin modifier it. Skin modifier for each of this object. So that's a bit of kind of additional trick you can use. I do this like a few years ago, and then I wrote articles about it on my blog BLENDERSUSHI. But now today you can just use animation nodes to trace particles, so it's a lot more elegant, and you can see the particle trace over time, and then yeah, that's just amazing. I loved it, and hopefully you find this to be super useful. You can create like a procedural kind of art this way, and yeah, just give it a try. If you make something cool, you can send me email or comments or Twitter. Send me Twitter as well. Okay, hope you enjoy this video.